An administration that looks more like America might have some Trump supporters in it. I'm Scott Ott, and this episode of Bill Whittle Now is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. And Bill, that's the word from Joe Biden, who answered a reporter's question in saying that he was quite open to appointing people who are Republicans or conservatives or Trump supporters within his administration, although when asked when that announcement would come, he quickly said not soon. But he said that he was very open to that idea. And it made me wonder, Bill, what happens to such a person? Let's say that Joe Biden takes the oath of office on January 20th and appoints somebody who was either a Republican and or a Trump supporter to his administration in a relatively significant position. How does that person get treated by Trump supporters across the country and Republicans? Are they embraced as saying, hey, this is great, that's exactly what we've wanted every president to do? Or they say, no, this guy's a sellout?
I know this is getting tiresome, but I just consider this to be a semi-legal issue for me. This election isn't over, and I won't be making that I won't be dealing with that as a fait accompli until after January 20th. I'm going to have to get that out of the way every show between now and then, so just get used to it. Anyway, I have a very difficult time believing both ends of that equation. I have exceedingly difficult time believing that Joe Biden is going to have any real, genuine Trump supporters in his cabinet. And secondly, I do not imagine how anybody could be an honest-to-God Trump supporter and work in a candidate Biden administration. I just can't. I can't imagine
assertion that. Justify the first assertion. Basically, if you would possibly work within the Trump or the Biden administration, therefore you could not have been a genuine Trump supporter.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much right. But I don't think that Biden's statement was genuine at all. I think it's exactly the kind of, well, now that we've slandered this guy and run a 4-year coup against him and so on, now and all you Nazis and racists out there, now it's time for us to be united underneath the banner of Joe Biden and march, arm in arm towards our sunset. No. I think this is Joe Biden playing whatever part of the reunification thing that he's mentally able to handle. That's what I think this is. I think it's just a public relations statement like anything else, and is just a reflexive answer to a bizarre question that you would really have to be a member of the mainstream media to ask. I mean, the idea of a question like that would never enter my head because I consider myself to be a Trump supporter. I know a number of people who are Trump supporters, and the idea of working for Joe Biden administration is anathema to them. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people that haven't called themselves Trump supporters or are positioning themselves as Trump supporters, but as we discussed on your Right Angle shows, if Biden's entire position is we're going to Washington to find experienced people, then anybody who you find in that let's just say natural wetlands environment, who says that they're a Trump supporter and is willing to work on Joe Biden's team, I have a very difficult time understanding how you could square those two things. I couldn't.
But Bill, isn't that exactly what a Trump supporter or Republican should want to do rather than basically say, hey, let's let these guys who are, all Democrats, dyed-in-the-wool, progressives and liberals run this country for the next 4 years? Wouldn't it be better to be inside and having an influence on policy than it would be to be on the outside and just screaming at the wind?
That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that you would be holding a man's coat while he molests your child.
That escalated rather quickly. Do you want to clarify that statement?
Yeah. If you are the legitimacy of the election aside for a moment, Joe Biden has openly stated, and everything since the election has indicated, that he is going to embark on things like on the Green New Deal, which is trivial compared to the Great Reset. This whole thing is a gigantic opportunity to use the Wuhan pandemic as an opportunity to basically destroy all elements of American freedom, which have been under attack for decades now. Freedom of speech, first among them. The ability to defend yourself is a close second. That's kind of nice how that works. And so to be a party to this is not something that people of moral conscience can contemplate.
We don't get to not be a party to it, Bill. We still live in this country
No.
unless you plan to emigrate.
Well,
you're going to be part of it too.
You. That's clearly a nonsensical statement. I can live in the United States of America and not be in Joe Biden's cabinet, and that looks like that's.
So it would be better to have a hard left Biden appointee sitting in his cabinet, basically as a yes man to whatever Kamala Harris or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says should be done, than having somebody there who is at least part of the loyal opposition who says, okay, so you want to do something about climate change? How about we advance America's use of nuclear energy?
And now we come back to the opening statement, which is just plain Joe Biden lying. There is no way on earth. There's no way on earth that this squad of power-hungry socialists would ever have a conservative on any part of their cabinet, and especially not one with any authority. So all you do by joining that goat rodeo is add credibility to it. And that's not something I think anybody with a conscience would want to do. I wouldn't want to add any credibility to that. And first of all, they're not going to give the job to anybody who's an actual American-loving constitutionalist, because that's what they're trying to destroy. And their evidence of that is all across the board. This is their entire history. So that's not my imagination. The idea that they would suddenly put a Rush Limbaugh in as Secretary of Defense is simple publicity. It's just more of this kind of public relations pablum designed to placate people and calm them down.
Well, he's not yet named as Secretary of Defense, so maybe you or Rush Limbaugh would still be in the running.
If I had the opportunity to, I actually almost said if I was offered the job as Defense Secretary in Joe Biden's administration, I actually came that close to say it, I would have taken it.
But isn't it serving the country, Bill, rather than serving Joe Biden? When you're in a role like that, isn't it important for you to say, yeah, I don't care for the president or his policies. I didn't vote for him, but I will serve my country in this role within this agency or, in this cabinet position. Wouldn't that be the American thing to do?
Well, that would be the reptilian thing to do. You can make a good case for that. But again, we have to, since this whole thing is a hypothetical, we have to come back to the point at which point the hypothetical becomes absurd. And the idea that Joe Biden would appoint a defense secretary who would stand up to Joe Biden and resist whatever calls to weaken the military he may have, or a defense secretary who said, geez, Mr. President, I know that you and Barack Obama spent 8 years cultivating this relationship with Iran, but I think that Iran is our number one enemy in the world, and I don't think we should be involved with them at all. And Joe Biden's going to say, our entire deal is to go back and pivot back towards Iran, and we've said we're going to do that already. But now that this conservative says no, we're not going to do that, then I guess we'd better listen to him. The entire proposition is absurd. It is genuinely trying to determine how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. It is a non sequitur.
Well, it would be absurd if it was something I just made up, but it's actually something that Joe Biden himself said. And in fact, to address your other point, when Biden announced his picks as Secretary of State and Secretary of the Treasury and the National Defense, what do they call that? DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Homeland Security, he said of those people, I don't want them to tell me what I want to know. I want them to tell me what I need to know. So basically, you're saying it doesn't really matter what Joe Biden says out loud, that he will be able to somehow disobey or violate what he said to the American people and just keep moving on. And later on, he'll say, well, I didn't really mean I was going to appoint a Republican, and I didn't really mean I was going to listen to my advisors.
Scott, I'm quite convinced that Joe Biden doesn't remember what he had for breakfast.
Well, I know you're convinced of that, but you were also surprised at how well he performed at the debates, and he has somehow managed to remain on his feet.
Well, he's managed to remain on his feet, and I know how he's managed to remain on his feet. There's amazing things that you can do when you ask a candidate. The most difficult question of the campaign is, what's your favorite milkshake flavor? So, yeah, I understand how he's on his feet, and I get all that. But this idea is a preposterous idea, and to buy into it is to play along with their psychological warfare operation. I'm not willing to do it. I'm not willing to do it. I'm not willing to do a number of the things that are required in order for me to play this game. First of all, I'm not willing to admit that he's that he's going to be president of the United States. That has yet to be determined. Secondly, I am not going to be a party to what I consider to be a criminal organization, which has nothing to do with the alleged voter fraud and has everything to do with the evidence on the laptop of Hunter Biden that says he got payouts from China, along with photographs of Hunter Biden in the raw. And so you're going to have to tell me that the director of national intelligence said that there's no evidence that this was a Russian fake. So I'm convinced that this is a criminal activity, and I'm not going to be a part of it. Now, if you ask me if I would go into it to wear a wire as a means of pulling this thing down, now you're talking about something completely different. But that's not the premise you're stating here. You're stating, wouldn't it be better to have somebody in that position? If the person in the position had the ability to actually have make a stand against this, then you could make the case for it. But that's absurd. It's just completely absurd. It's absurd to think that they would put an actual conservative in that place, first of all. And secondly, it's absurd to think that even if they did, that this person would have any authority. This whole thing is simply, it is a public relations ploy. And he certainly wasn't expecting the answer. It doesn't sound like he was expecting the answer. Would you be willing to? What's he going to say? No. Why, of course, we'd be willing to have any number of conservatives on the court. Perhaps Mr. Brooks is available. Perhaps he could be Secretary of Defense. Any of these
David
other
Brooks
people.
of the New York Times, is that who you're talking about?
I mean, maybe if he gets a look at how well creased Joe Biden's trousers are, he might be willing to become the conservative defense secretary. And maybe they could get some conservatives from the Lincoln Project to become members of the Joe Biden cabinet. And they could trumpet how, well, we're sensible Republicans, and we think that this is a marvelous idea. And the Lincoln Project would be exactly where I would look if I was looking for that kind of person. But for people of integrity, you cannot cooperate in something that you consider to be a criminal enterprise. And the evidence for not only Biden, but the entire stack of them is overwhelming. And unlike the evidence for Donald Trump, which after $50 million and 500 witnesses or whatever the amounts were, which turned up nothing, by the way, there's never been an investigation into any of this, except for the ongoing investigation that shows that people in the FBI with the Hillary Clinton campaign basically put together a collusion story and ran a 4-year running coup against the sitting president. I'm consider that to be a criminal activity and a criminal enterprise, and I'm not going to be a part of it under any circumstances. My job is to destroy that thing.
The members of BillWhittle.com have made this program possible. We produce some more than 40 programs each month thanks to them. In addition to the content that Bill and myself and Stephen Green generate, the members themselves are generating a veritable cataract of content at the member blog and in the comments at BillWhittle.com. If you've not yet tapped into that resource, you're going to want to go to BillWhittle.com and click the big green Become a Member button. If you feel kind of weird about recurring payment agreements, then you may also make a one-time donation if you like what's being said here and you want to see these ideas advanced.
You could mail it in too.
In the old-fashioned mail it in. Yes, the U.S. Postal Service is so far still delivering checks to the address that you can find on our one-time donation page. We invite you to do so right now. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.